I told you all you're going to hear something about Torah that you needed to hear, and I certainly feel that way from Isaac and Avery's words. You really became our teachers today, and you helped us see Torah in the way that we need to see it now. I opened the service by talking about this time being a time when we could take a break from the troubles of the world, and we had a little bit of time like that, and now I'm going to need to address what is going on in Israel and Palestine, and I will bring it around to connect with what both of you said. I had a chance on Thursday to talk to our member Jared Dougal, who is 18 years old, and actually one of my son Benji's closest friends, and they met here at Yachad. And actually, I want to make a point while I'm saying that to say that Avery and Isaac are really, really close friends, and they met here at Yachad, and that's an awesome thing. But I had a chance to talk to Jared this week because he's living and working in Tel Aviv these few months, taking a break from his first year at the University of Michigan. Jared's a really smart, thoughtful, intellectual kid. And he and I have had many conversations over the years about Israel-Palestine and as well as about American politics. He's the kind of kid who's always well-read and able to bring insightful analysis to any situation. I called Jared to see how he was holding up. He told me that when the first rocket attack came, he was walking on the street with AirPods in his ears and he didn't hear the sirens. He saw people running all around him and he tried to understand what was going on and he had no idea. A friend texted him and told him to come to a bar where she was, and he ran as fast as he could, and he said the ground was shaking and the glass was shaking, and he actually thought he was going to die. He said he felt like when he got to the bar that he was going to burst into tears, but then he saw that his friends were crying and he needed to comfort them. In the break between rocket fire, he and his friends were able to find a shelter and they ran there. They spent the night in the shelter. And now he is staying at his friend's apartment because there's a shelter in the basement and they can get there in 20 seconds when they hear a siren. He said that most of the rocket attacks happen during the night so that no one can sleep. And every time you fall back asleep, you hear a siren and you run for your life to the basement. Wednesday night, it was 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and 5 a.m. He is exhausted and just hoping that this is going to end soon. Jared said to me that he felt himself starting to hate. And he never thought he would be someone who felt hate like that. He said he was trying really hard not to hate. He said that when you're being bombed, it all becomes really simple. You just want to live. You just want peace. And you hate anyone who's making war. No one is benefiting from this, he said, except the highest ranks of Hamas and Bibi. Everyone else just wants to live. They just want peace. He said that it's really hard to read the social media postings from his friends in the States who are on their new iPhones in their comfortable and safe houses, posting pictures and talking about the occupation and how Israel is evil. He said this experience is making him into an ardent Zionist, and it's making him so much more understanding of what it's like to be an Israeli and what it's like to feel so hated in the region and so misunderstood in the world. All we want, after all, is a place on the earth where Jews can live in safety and peace. Why is it so hard for the world to grant us that? Jared does believe that the occupation of the West Bank is wrong, and he does believe that Palestinians deserve a state and self-determination and equal rights within Israel for those who are citizens, but he does not want to hear that at this moment from Americans who are sitting in comfort and sleeping safely through the night while rockets are raining down upon his head. Right now, we are witnessing the specter of civil war in Israel, in addition to the attacks from Hamas, an unprecedented phenomenon as rioting fills the streets and Jewish mobs attack Arabs and Arab mobs attack Jews, all while Hamas rockets rain down upon Israeli population centers and Israeli airstrikes obliterate Gaza neighborhoods. As of this writing, 8 Israelis, including a 5-year-old boy, and more than 100 Gazans, including 28 children, have died. Many Americans, including many congregants here, are writing me that there should be no equivalency made between the deaths of Israelis and the deaths of Palestinians. Some of them are writing with that message to say that while Israeli airstrikes only kill civilians because Hamas cynically fires rockets from residential areas. Hamas fully intends to kill civilians, and this is terrorism, and it is a violation of international law, and it must be condemned in no uncertain terms, and it is not equivalent. That is true. It must be condemned, and it is not morally equivalent. But others are writing me to say that there should be no moral equivalency because Israel has all the power. Israel has the army and controls the borders. Gaza has no bomb shelters or Iron Dome to shoot rockets out of the sky. And more than 10 times as many Palestinians have died this week as have Israelis. This is also true. There are so many places to point for the origins of this current conflict, this current conflagration. The wrongful evictions of Palestinians from their homes in Sheikh Jarrah and East Jerusalem, the incendiary balloons from Hamas in Gaza, Netanyahu's attempt to stay in power, and the Palestinian Authority's postponement of elections, the cynical incitement by the Palestinian Authority of the conflict at Al-Aqsa, and then the Israeli police raid of that Muslim holy site during Ramadan. Behind it all, the relentless expansion of settlements in the West Bank, the murderous regime of Hamas, Bibi's threats of and de facto annexation of the West Bank, racism and ongoing discrimination subjugating Palestinian citizens within Israel, the abysmal corruption of all three governments, 54 years of grinding, humiliating, suffocating occupation, the Israeli government's ongoing denial of Palestinian rights to their homes, the world's ongoing questioning and denial of the Jewish people's right to our home, and the repeated and historic trauma of all involved. That is not a comprehensive list of places we could point. And at the roots of all of it are the lesson that you both brought us today, Avery and Isaac. First, the problem of human hierarchy, the fundamentally unjust hierarchy of the Kohanim over the other Levites and over the Israelites is just one version of human ranking. That you taught us, Isaac, is not unlike the caste system or systemic racism in the United States or in any country that ranks some citizens or residents above others. And you pointed out that even within the Kohanim, those with disabilities, or what the Torah unartfully and inaccurately called defects, because this is actually just another form of human diversity, are ranked below the others. Never mind women, who of course were half of the population, who are automatically disqualified from service. And then Avery, your point dovetails so nicely with Isaac's as you consider what it means to count people, whether that's in the biblical census or our own, or in the number of dead from this week, and the ways that counting can be a process of devaluing as people get missed from the count, and those who are counted become a number and are not truly seen in their dignity and humanity. This is it. This is the Torah we need right now, what you've brought us. In Israel, in Palestine, in Brooklyn, in the United States, everywhere. This is it. Surely it must be possible for our species to learn how to see and value one another in our differences, ideally even more so because of our differences. It is at one level so simple. I've been hearing from so many Israeli and Palestinian friends and colleagues who are arm in arm with one another right now, marching for peace and helping each other through this time, and that has not been adequately reported. From Hadass Ron, I just feel so worried and full of pain, and on the other hand, I have no choice but holding out the hope for life together with our neighbors in peace and friendship in this bleeding country. From Dotan Arieli, I feel that there is a mist all over Israel, that it is hard to see clearly what is going on. There are many attempts to calm the flames, but the media hardly talks about it. Many Jews and Arabs are reaching out and helping each other. It's almost like a civil help force. Tomorrow night is Shavuot, when we reenact our people's experience in the Sinai wilderness, at the foot of the mountain. Bamidbar, in the wilderness, we see that our people, counted as they are by tribe, are arranged in physical space around the Mishkan, around the tabernacle. And at the very center of the tabernacle is the Holy of Holies. And at the very center of the Holy of Holies are two cherubim, two angels facing one another. And between their faces descends the Shekhinah, God's indwelling presence. And from there, the voice resounds. Or HaChaim notes that the first verse of the Parsha has a strange inconsistency. It starts by being specific and then being general, and it ends by being general and then specific. It says, on the first day of the second month of the second year, day, month, year, specific to general. And then it says that God spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting. Wilderness, tent, general, specific. But not so, Or HaChaim teaches. The tent of meeting, the place where oneness dwells, is the encompassing measure. No wilderness, no matter how vast or how daunting, how difficult to imagine the way out, is bigger than the oneness that holds it all. Yes, they are readying themselves in this portion to fight potential enemies. And yes, they are separated into tribes. And yes, there is hierarchy among them. And yes, they have just been counted, excluding some and devaluing others. Yes, all of the flaws and imperfections in human society are visible right here in the Parsha. But also, right in the middle is the source of all of their lives, a source that is universal. El Allah, the merciful one, the Holy One of blessing, the one God of the universe. Rabbi Tamar Elad and Sheikha Ibtisam Mahmid wrote a joint prayer in Hebrew and Arabic. I'll close with it. God of life, who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, may it be your will to hear the prayer of mothers, for you did not create us to kill each other, nor to live in fear, anger, or hatred in your world, but rather you have created us so we can grant permission to one another to sanctify your name of life, your name of peace in this world. For these things I weep. My eye runs down with water. For our children crying at nights. For parents holding their children with despair and darkness in their hearts. For a gate that is closing, and who will open it while the day has not yet dawned? And with tears and prayers which I pray, and with the tears of all women who deeply feel the pain of these difficult days, I raise my hands to you. Please, God, have mercy on us. Hear our voice that we shall not despair, that we shall see life in each other, that we shall have mercy for each other, that we shall have pity on each other, that we shall hope for each other, and we shall write our lives in the book of life for your sake, God of life. Let us choose life. For you are peace, your world is peace, and all that is yours is peace. And so shall be your will. And let us say, Amen.